Flightless, Chapter 4. Goddess of the Night, sleep with me tonight. Rainbow's legs were sore as she made her way back to her home on the edge of the forest. In one of her hands, she clutched a large case. It wasn't the lightest thing, and Rainbow seemed to be having a difficult time carrying it, but nonetheless, Rainbow continued on without complaint. Inside her heart, she was eager to getting home. She had something special in that box, and she just couldn't believe she was able to attain one. Thanks to her good friend Rarity, who knew a thing or two about getting rare things like this, was able to get one from an inventing friend of hers. Rainbow still wasn't sure who made this, and quite frankly, that wasn't the last thing on her mind at the moment. All she was worrying about was the happiness that this present would give Scootaloo. Sure, it might take her a while, but she would definitely warm up to the idea. The athlete turned her neck sharply to the side and popped it. She mimicked this act on the other side. As she did so, she was now feeling a much more heavy feeling in her chest. What if Scootaloo didn't like her gift? Rainbow was sure that Rarity worked hard to get this for her, and Rainbow thought out the gift so well. She was almost positive that Scootaloo would love it, and maybe Scootaloo would think of her as more just like another cool athlete. Rainbow was hoping for something more dear, something more admirable, something more irreplaceable, something like a mother. Sure, Rainbow wasn't much for being a family kind of girl. She didn't grow up with her parents, hence she didn't really know them. She also didn't even know if she had any siblings, or anyone for that matter, that would be considered immediate family. She didn't know much about a family and how it was supposed to work, let alone how to run one. Yet, for some odd reason, she really wanted to know that feeling. She wanted to know what made mothers so happy about their children, and she wanted Fluttershy to know too. There was just something that seemed to be missing, besides the point that Scootaloo didn't address her as a mom. Something else was not there, but Rainbow didn't quite seem to be able to put a finger on it. What makes a family? The bold girl looked up to the sky with a thoughtful look upon her face. She wasn't exactly sure why she was thinking things like this lately. It was almost as if she were some sort of adult. Of course, she was older now, and she didn't play much like she used to with all her friends. Yes, she was the captain of a professional track team, and sure, she was almost 21. However, Rainbow Dash didn't feel like she was mature enough to be labeled an adult. Or at least, she didn't want to think of herself as one. But what was it about wanting to know more about families? Rainbow wasn't sure how to answer any of her questions. She wasn't even sure why she was asking herself things like this. The rainbow-haired girl stopped dead in her tracks. Her arm was now feeling weak from carrying around the heavy box, and so she switched it to her other hand, shifting to her other hip. Rainbow closed her eyes. She couldn't explain it, but something deep inside her didn't feel right. It was as if she felt some sort of danger around. Her eyelids lashed open quickly, and with a panic inside her chest, Rainbow Dash dropped the box she was carrying, and she ran at full speed towards home. Fluttershy! Her heart pumped wildly as she ran quickly as her sore legs would take her. Sweat dripped down her forehead as her mind carried her to places she didn't want to think about. Hundreds of what-if stories clouded her mind. She tried as best as she could to sweep them away as she began to approach the cottage closer and closer. A few more strides, and she was now rushing to the front door. Her heavy hands clasped against the doorknobs, and for a few moments she struggled to open the door. But sure enough, she finally pulled it open and came toppling into Fluttershy. Rainbow lay there on top of Fluttershy for a few seconds before realizing what had just happened. Once she finally gained back her vision, the tan girl quickly wrapped her arms around her lover. "Oh, Fluttershy, I was so worried!" Rainbow kissed Fluttershy's sweet lips. She melted away as if it was their first. Fluttershy's eyes were wide with confusion. Rainbow soon realized from her lip lock and then gazed happily into Fluttershy's large aqua eyes. She brushed her cheek softly with one free hand and swept away a few pink stray hairs from her pale face. Rainbow? What is it? Fluttershy tried to sit up, and once Rainbow realized it, she quickly sat up and picked up her girlfriend along with her. After they finally got their balance back, Rainbow's eyes dropped. Something still didn't feel quite right. Something was wrong. Where's Scoots? Rainbow turned back up, revealing her fear to the ever-so-confused Fluttershy. I was just about to go looking for you two. Fluttershy's eyes quivered with worry. She finally realized that Scootaloo wasn't with Rainbow Dash. Where has she gone? Us two? What do you mean? She wasn't with me. Rainbow's eyes began to emanate the same worry that Fluttershy was giving off. Fear began to rise up inside of them both. Motherly fear. She said she... You don't have time to explain now! We need to find her! Rainbow Dash turned around swiftly and jolted out the door before Fluttershy could even continue. The meek girl called out to her as she began to run at her own speed after her. She went to the track searching for you! Fluttershy tried as hard as she could to catch up with her much more outgoing girlfriend. Her sundress was flowing in the wind as well as her long hair. Her feet were bare, and she felt stings and burns as she ran across the unknown things. But she wasn't worrying about that. She was worrying about her darling little Scootaloo. Rainbow quickly changed her direction and ran as fast as her feet would take her to the familiar track field. Her mind couldn't think at the moment. It wasn't even able to think of worrying scenarios right now. Rainbow wasn't going to allow herself to jump to any unwanted conclusion at a time like this. Scootaloo could be out playing for all she knew, or maybe she was trying to see how fast she could will herself. Rainbow kept her mind busy with those kinds of thoughts. It was less stressful to think about in that kind of context, and for all she knew, maybe Scoots was out doing harmless little girl things, being the tomboy she is, playing with dirt, or something of that nature. Rainbow's dreams soon died away, though as her view shot back into reality. From a distance, Rainbow could now see the hill that was hovering above the track field. Everything seemed normal, but as she got closer, she was able to see something that her eyes dared not see. Tears filled up inside of her, as she could now see in plain view Scootaloo's wheelchair sitting at the edge of the cliff. No one was in it. Scootaloo was not in her wheelchair. Rainbow Dash could hear Fluttershy screaming with fright from behind her. Rainbow just wanted to hug her and assure her that everything was fine, but down inside, she wasn't even sure if herself would believe that. Rainbow's fears ate from her inside as she came close to the lonely chair. She placed a hand on the seat. Her hand shivered at the coldness it possessed. There was nothing more Rainbow wanted to do at that moment than just see Scootaloo standing next to her, like nothing ever happened. There was nothing more she wanted to do than be laying in her bed with Fluttershy on one side and Scootaloo in between them. Rainbow didn't want to do what needed to be done. She was afraid of what she would see. Rainbow slowly approached the very edge of the cliff. She could hear sobs from Fluttershy as she was toppled about the ground and frantic. Rainbow tried to ignore her heart, and she did what she knew had to be done. She turned her head down and looked over the edge. Her thoughts were correct, and she just wanted to fall over and die. Down below was Scootaloo's body. She looked so broken. No movement was visible, and Rainbow's mind was so filled with so many thoughts that she wasn't even sure what to do. The athlete did the first thing that came to mind. She ran as quickly as possible down the steep cliff. Gravity pulled at her as she almost tripped and tumbled down herself, but luckily enough, Rainbow was able to make it down the cliff without falling, and as soon as her feet hit the solid, flat ground, she slid quickly over to Scootaloo's motionless body. Scootaloo! Scootaloo! Rainbow's eyes began to bawl as she frantically shook the little girl's body up and down repeatedly. Large tears dripped over Scootaloo's face, and Rainbow couldn't stop them from falling. She tried to focus on Scootaloo's face and chest for any sign of light. She placed one ear against Scootaloo's chest to search for a heartbeat. She wasn't sure what she heard. Her mind kept telling her she was no longer there, but her heart kept telling her that she was still alive. "Oh, Celestia, please, Goddess, please!" Rainbow held Scootaloo's limp body in her arms as she wailed to the uncaring sky. She didn't know what she was doing. She felt nothing but striking pains in her chest and in her heart. Rainbow had never felt such intensity in all of her life. "Damn it, Celestia! Damn it! How dare you! How dare you!" Rainbow could no longer think. Her body was numb from the pains inside of her, and her voice began to fall into a faint whisper that would only be unheard by anyone if there were anyone around to hear. "Mommy?" Rainbow Dash's heart suddenly stopped inside her chest. She turned her head down to the feeble voice coming from the small body clutched in her arms. Rainbow could feel a sad smile forming across her face as she witnessed the happiest thing in all of her entire life. She could now see Scootaloo's chest moving up and down, revealing that she was alive and breathing. Although her eyes were closed, and she seemed to be sleeping, Rainbow brought one tender hand to the sleeping face of little Scootaloo. She rubbed the dirt from her soft baby-like skin, and she brushed her body as cleanly as she could. Rainbow pulled Scootaloo's body against her own and caressed her as if it were her most prized possession. She softly rubbed the back of Scootaloo's head and kissed her on her pale cheek. Rainbow brought her lips close to Scootaloo's ear and quietly whispered, "Thanks, Celestia. You were safe."